All right, gang, welcome back. Today we are going to be covering Dotloop and uploading all of your documents from a fully executed contract and cleaning up that loop so that it is full of executed documents, required documents, and then submitting that information to our operations team, the admin team, and then also covering the contract to close form. So we have a lot of good information to cover today. We're going to go through step by step. First thing, I guess, just to preface, I want to make sure, at this point, you should have a good understanding of Dotloop, how to create a loop, how to find documents, how to get them into your loop, how to fill out those documents, how to share those documents through previous trainings and videos that we have. So the content of this training is to pick up from you having a fully executed contract in place and now making sure that all of those documents are inputted properly into Dotloop and that the loop is cleaned up so that, again, it's only executed documents. You've got all of the other stuff out of there, sharing that information with our operations team, and then the contract to close form. And then we'll cover what's involved with the transaction manager, which is the operations team. So let's go ahead and just kind of pick it up from there. So at this point, let's assume that you have a fully executed contract on 123 Test Street, right? You have created this loop. You have put the required documents into this loop that you needed. That you could get from Dotloop, things that needed to be filled out so that you could submit your offer. You've negotiated, let's say, back and forth, and you have fully executed an offer at this point. Now, typically what happens at that point is, you've got a PDF from the listing agent in your email that is fully executed docs, right? That's your contract, your HOA disclosures, a seller property disclosure, lead-based paint if applicable. You've got FHA addendum if necessary. Any of the required disclosures and contract forms, appraisal contingencies, anything like that, you're going to have fully executed docs back from the listing agent, typically in a PDF, right? Now, what you have to do at that point is you've got to print that out. Then you take that information over to the office scanner. You scan those documents in separately, so one by one, just kind of one after the other, but make sure that they are separate documents. Once you get that completed, it's going to look something like this. So you at that point will have all of those documents in an email from the office, and they'll be separated, okay? So at this point, what we want to do is we want to take all of these and we want to upload them into our loop. So we simply at that point are going to add document. We're going to pull them from our email. We're going to copy this. We'll come back over to our email. If you go up here to the More option, you can forward all. This is a great little shortcut. It took me a while to find that for some reason. I used to send them all separately. So forward all, and then you're going to paste in, hang on a second here. You're going to paste in that link. You're going to send that. That's sent. You're going to come back over to Dotloop. And then if you'll refresh the page, all of those documents are now in your loop. So those are all executed documents that came back. So now what we have at this point, gang, is we have documents that were originally created that you filled out, had your client sign, and you shared those with the listing agent. Now there's been negotiation that's taken forth back in place or back and forth, and now you have the fully executed docs. So now the idea is, again, to get all of these executed docs in the loop and make sure that they're labeled properly. Okay, so the expectation for the Nickley Group is that we have these documents labeled in this format. So let's say let's open this one up so that I can see what document it is. Now this is the executed contract. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, and what I've learned to do here is create a shortcut again. What you can do here is you can just highlight this, copy, you want to rename this document, so click on the little dots there, go to rename. Now if you go Control V, that paste that in there, spacebar, dash, and then you want to write here executed contract, and then get rid of the rest of the stuff that was there. If you click off of that, why isn't that working? Well, when you click off of it, it saves it. But for whatever reason, that's not cooperating with me right now. Hang on a second. There we go. All right. So that's the way that you would want all of your documents to look. So let's just go through that here quickly. We already know this is the executed contract. This one would be our FHA addendum. So we'll simply go back, since we already know what that is now. We've just got to go down here, rename, Control V, or you can right click paste, and we're going to go executed FHA rider, and then get rid of the rest of the stuff that's there. Okay, click over. Now that's that. Next document. I know this is a little redundant, gang, but I want to make sure that you get full execution on this. This is seller's property disclosure. So again, we're going to rename. We're going to paste that in there, and we're going to go executed. Whoops. And I shorten that up, seller's disclosure statement, SDS. Okay, click off of there. This document is our Keller Williams comprehensive disclosure. So we're going to go KW disclosure. Well, we're actually going to go KW executed KW disclosure. Get to the end here, and then we're going to delete all of this. Almost done, gang. Hang in there with me. This was their pre-approval letter. And then the last one here is the contract to close form, which we'll cover here later. Then you can just simply go contract to close. That's all that's needed. The admin team knows what that is. So at this point, you want to take these old documents, these 3 right here, that you're not using, that were the initial offer that was written, those are not executed, and you really just want to get rid of these. Clean them up, get them out of there. They don't need to be in there anymore. They just kind of clutter up and muddy up the loop. So we get rid of those. You just simply check them, archive them, make them go away. Now what you've got here is a very clean, all executed docs that are necessary, needed, required as a part of the transaction. And the next step in the process would be to share this with the operations team. Okay, so that's the expectation. Your loop, when you've got an executed deal in place, that's the way it should look, right? The purpose for that is that, you know, our operations team can be managing at any time 20, 30, 40 transactions. You know, when they pull up a loop, they don't need to be hunting for what's an executed document, what's not an executed document. They need to be able to go in, and those documents that are pertinent and that are executed and that are relevant to the transaction, that's all that should be in the loop. Okay, so that's the reason that we do that. Now at this point, you're going to want to add your admin team to the file. At this, you know, you would have down here your buyers' names already in here, the listing agent information. You would have added them prior to, because you would have been sending documents back and forth, so you would have more names in here. But at this point, we want to add in our admin team. Okay, so we're going to add person, and it is always going to be Thomas Nickley, and it's going to be this one right here. So Thomas Nickley, the email address is dotloop@thenickley.com. So if you click that, it'll populate both fields, Thomas Nickley, dotloop@thenickley.com. You're going to want to make the role of that admin. And then the most important part of this, to making sure that the operations team has access to your loop, which gives them full functionality to be able to add documents, take away, send documents, so on and so forth, is that you add them to your team. Okay, what that does is send an invitation to the operations team. They accept it, and then they now have full functionality of the loop. Okay, so once we do that, we add person, and then you have now shared this loop with the operations team, which is fantastic. So you can see everything that's going on. They can see everything that's going on. They can add documents, edit documents, send things, archive, do whatever's necessary. But at this point, you've got a very clean loop. You have shared it with the team. The team then picks up at that point. I'll cover here in a little bit what's involved on that end in terms of their role. So, you know, again, if you have questions with any of this stuff as you move forward, obviously we're here to assist. But if you follow that structure, just to recap again quickly, you've created a loop. You have added the necessary documents originally that you needed for whatever offer you're submitting. You've got those electronically, you know, populated. You've electronically sent them to your clients for signatures. Then, you know, things have been negotiated back and forth. The listing agent has sent you over, you know, fully executed docs and a PDF. You've gone in, you've scanned that stuff into the email, which again, if we go back over to the email tab, you know, would look something like this. You would then forward all to the loop. They get inputted, you change the names, archive everything that's there, and share with the team by adding them here. Okay, so that's pretty much what that would look like. Before I get over to the contract to close form, let me just touch on a couple things here regarding the coordinator duties. let's see, coordinator duties is they're going to make sure that the pertinent dates are on the agent calendars. So what the effective date of the contract, what your inspection period deadline is, what your loan approval deadline is, the closing date, pertinent information that you as the agent need to know and to be aware of. That they're going to add those things to your calendar. They'll facilitate getting the earnest money deposit from the buyer to the title company. They're going to make sure that the file is submitted to the KW office for compliance review. They're going to coordinate inspections and things of that nature, and talk about options with inspection companies with the client so that they can get those arrangements made. They'll assist with writing and sharing addendums that need to be handled on the file. They'll confirm appraisals and make sure that the appraisal process is taking place, and coordinate and schedule that stuff. That'll be on your calendar. Let's see here. Coordinate the closing with the title company and the lender. Again, our transaction coordinator, which is part of the operations team, is going to make sure that the flow of the transaction is taking place while you're continuing to prospect and generate new business. That's one of the huge value propositions of being with a real estate team, more specifically our team, is that you've got that support. You've got that leverage of an operations team, admin support to handle all of those administrative functions that happen after you get a deal under contract, so that you're not buried with all of that and you can focus on generating new business. So these are all things, again, that the client care coordinator or the transaction manager is doing. Again, coordinating with title, lender, coordinating and scheduling the final walkthrough, making sure that is on your calendar. If there's home warranties that were included as a part of the transaction, the client care coordinator can order that and make sure that that's in place. Submit the file and submit the DA information, the disbursement authorization, with the office, and get that over to title, so that when you walk away from the closing, you have your actual check in hand. You don't have to bring the whole office check back and then wait a day or 2 or 3 for the office to split it up. You've got your check in hand. So there's a lot of great advantages and functionality that the operations and admin team bring to the table on that. Let's see here. I guess a couple things to cover too. Everybody uses their own loop. So every agent individually on the team has their own Dotloop account, and so you're creating your own loops. You're creating your own electronic file. The only time that gets shared with the team is once you have an executed deal in place. So if you're just writing offers and submitting offers on behalf of clients, that doesn't, our operations team is not involved at that point. This is only if and when you have fully executed contracts and paperwork that need to now be handed off to your transaction manager or the client care coordinator and the operations team. So everybody has their own. Again, you want to make sure that the loop is cleaned up, only executed copies are there, that they're renamed, you archive everything else. It's important once you get that submitted that you take a quick 5 minutes, sit down face to face with your transaction coordinator, and talk about any of the specifics with the transaction. For example, this particular transaction that we have here that we've been looking at. This is a mom and a son. The son is going to be a co-borrower, non-occupant. This is not a husband-wife, right? It's important that when your transaction coordinator calls and talks to the client, that they're not looking, for Mr. and Mrs. If that's the case. Something else of importance would be, let's say, again, in this particular case, the son is a business owner. He's a very busy guy. He's hard to get a hold of. That you tell your client care coordinator, hey, Lewis is an extremely busy guy. He doesn't often answer his phone because he's always on the other line. Hey, leave him a message. If you'll follow that up with a quick text, he'll be sure to call you back. So little details or other information about the transaction that they need to know about going in. All right, you've created a relationship. You've negotiated this deal. You know all of the details and specifics about it. Share those things with your transaction coordinators so that they're in the know. So that's important. Take a couple minutes to do that. Let's see here. I'm just reviewing some information to make sure that I cover it all with you. I guess that's pretty good at that point. We'll cover here right now what the contract to close form looks like, and I'll cover all the facets of that. Let's go ahead and do that here now. So once you have a contract fully executed, and it's important that you have this form, and this form be filled out to the best of your ability. What this does is give the operations and admin team everything that they need, right? Pertinent details so that they can get the process started on their end, so that they can manage the transaction for you all the way to the closing table. Okay, so this is a critical step in the process. If they don't have this information, they are flying blind, and that's doing nobody any good. It's not great. It's not a good experience for your client. It's not good for the TC. It's not good for you. So it's important that we go through and that we fill this form out properly. So we have this in paper form. Obviously, there is a digital version of this. We can make sure that you have a copy of that. I personally like using the digital version. It's just cleaner to write, and I just prefer that. So obviously, T&G, the Nickley Group agent, that would be your name. You would fill that out, which, by the way, we have a seller contract to close as well. But for the purposes of training, it's almost the same exact thing. A couple little changes. We'll cover that at another time. So agent name, is the contract contingent? Yes or no? Typically, this would be a financing. Date received, this would be the date you're filling it out and turning it in. Lead source, this is going to be, where did the lead come from? Was it a Commissions Inc. lead? Was it Sphere of Influence? Was it a past client referral? Was it, Realtor.com? Whatever it may be, you're going to want to put the lead source in here. If there's any sort of referral fee that gets paid, again, if it was an outside agent referral and you're giving them a 20 or 25% referral, that would be there. Buyer agent percentage. So this is going to be the per the MLS, what the split is to the buyer agent. So 3%, 2.5%, whatever that may be. And then the split percentage to you as the agent. Okay, so you'll fill that in there. MLS number, obviously, that's pretty self-explanatory. Effective date of the contract. The closing date of the contract. Your inspection period, 10 days, 7 days, 5 days, 15 days, whatever you have. And then the IED is your inspection end date. Inspection end date. So if you have a 10-day inspection, what is that 10th day look? What's the date on that? Okay. Sales price, obviously, earnest money. If it was turned into somebody, usually at this point it hasn't been, and the operations team takes over and they make sure that the buyer has either wiring instructions or the necessary information they need to get it to the title company. If there's any closing costs paid by the seller as a part of the transaction, you're going to want to have that filled in there. If there's a home warranty being included, yes, no. If yes, what company and for what company is supplying it? How much is it? And who's going to be ordering it? Is it the buyer's agent or the listing agent? If you're the buyer's agent, we're going to be ordering it. Again, the transaction coordinator, transaction manager will order that for you. They just need to know who it gets ordered from and how much. Is this a regular closing? Thankfully, most of them are now. Is it a short sale? Is it a financed offer? Is it cash? New construction? Was there a foreclosure? Do you know ahead of time if it's going to be a mail away? Those are all, that's all pertinent information. Order inspections with. Usually at this point, gang, we would put to be determined or buyer's choice there. Our transaction managers, client care coordinators are going to be having that conversation with the buyer and making suggestions and setting that up for them. So, during your initial buyer consultation, you set an expectation that we have vendors and we have good options for them when we get to that point. During the negotiation process, you should have set good expectations that, hey, we've got a 10-day inspection period. Our client care coordinator is going to make sure that, they go through those options with you and get all of that arranged. So you've teed that up. You've set expectations that's going to be happening. So they haven't really selected anybody at this point unless they specifically have somebody that they're going to be using and they have made you aware of that. So you fill that in there. Typically, a home inspection, yes. Pest inspection is going to be the WDO or your termite inspection. That's pretty common. So the first two are very common. Yes, yes. 4-point inspection, again. Our client care coordinator, the transaction manager, is going to have that discussion with the client and ask if they are going to want a 4-point inspection. Older homes they're almost required on. Newer homes, that can be optional. Again, same thing with a wind mitigation. Yes or no on that. If you know ahead of time and you've had that conversation with your client, select yes or no there, right? Survey is going to be yes if it's financed, because the title company is going to require that be there. Year built, pretty self-explanatory. Heated, square footage. If there's a pool, yes, no. If there's any detached buildings, yes, no. If there's any crawl space, yes, no. If you have the homeowners association name and a contact phone number, if there's a management company, fill that information out. That's very, very, very helpful, very useful for the operations team to make sure that they can get the necessary HOA docs and information that's needed there. Property address, obviously, if there is an alarm combo, again, if it's electronic lockbox, you would put it in there. If it's an ELB and there's an alarm, you would put that in there. Combo, obviously the combination. Vacant, occupied is pretty self-explanatory. Utilities, yes or no, are they on? And what type of loan is being done here, okay? Seller's name, pretty simple. You just pull that right off the contract or public record, fill that in. You're looking for the buyer's names, first name, last name of the buyers involved. Buyer email addresses. So typically what we do on this line, if it's, let's say, in the case of the loop that we were just looking at, I have Lewis Dickerson. So I would type in Lewis dash and then put his email address, give some spaces, and then Linda dash and then Linda's email address. Same thing below here with the phone numbers. Lewis dash his phone number, Linda dash her phone numbers. In top producer, that's what this is here. I don't check these because at this point they're typically not, and I let the admin team handle that, okay? Buyer's current address, if we have that, let's make sure to get that in there. What's important about that is that they receive from us a day or two after it goes under contract, they receive a congratulations letter, and they actually get a little box of brownies from the Nickley Group, basically saying, hey, congratulations on putting a home under contract. Please accept these brownies on our behalf. We hope you enjoy it. We look forward to working with you. It's a nice little touch. So the only way that we can make sure that they get that is if we have an accurate address to send that to. Down below here is going to be the lender firm. So this is the lender's company information. So in this case, it's Certified Mortgage Planners. You're going to put that in there. Do they have a copy of the contract already? Yes or no. If you've sent it to them, great. You can hit yes. The admin team is going to make sure that everybody involved in the transaction has got copies, regardless of whether you've sent it to them or not. If it's time sensitive, a weekend, you want to make sure that you are getting executed copies of things to people. Feel free to make sure you send it and do it the first time. The admin team, the operations team is gonna make sure that they do their part and resend it again. Hey, better to have it sent more than not enough, right? So let's see, lender name. If it's Certified Mortgage Planners, I know it's Gwen. I'm going to have that in there. Gwen's email, Gwen's phone number. If I know the processor's information, same thing here, processor, email, phone number. Title company information, again, you should have that. It should be on the contract. So title company, what their address is. If you know who's handling it, the processor, email, phone number. If they're the closer, again, the more information you can supply here, the better. It's just, the devil's in the details, right? So listing agent, the firm they're with, their brokerage, their email, their phone number. This is, check these boxes, right? This is paperwork that is completed, that's finished. Executed purchase contract, you've got the seller's disclosure statement, you've got your HOA disclosure, this is the Keller Williams buyer comprehensive disclosure, if you've got a copy of the pre-approval, so on and so forth. So any of the pertinent documents that you have that are completed, that have been turned in, you need to make sure those are checked. And then, any additional notes that you want to put in there. Got $5.99 transaction fee, comma or period, whatever it is that's pertinent that you want to add in here. Only waiting on one initial for lead-based paint disclosure. We'll upload as soon as I have it. So just that you've got it on there, and that when you turn that in to the operations team, they've got a little heads up down there. So what I want to do is I want to show you what a completed version of this is. I mean, hopefully, as you can see from going through that line by line, that's all very relevant and very, very pertinent information that you should know, that if you're handing your file off to a transaction manager and they're going to be picking that up and giving a world-class experience all the way to the closing table, these are all details that they need to know. So let me show you what a completed one would look like. And that is going to be right there. So as you can see, it's all filled out, right? You want to make sure that you take time, you go through it, that you provide the right information, and that you are giving the client care coordinator and our operations team everything they need. You want to make sure that you're setting them up for success. So I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover there. If again, moving along through the process of writing offers and submitting loops, if you have questions, we're here. But that's a real good example and expectation of what a loop should look like, how to submit it to the team, and the what's involved. I just kind of scratched the surface really on what's involved with the client care coordinator and how they're managing the process. There are many more steps involved on their end, and then what the contract to close form looks like. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.